Hi, my name is Jim, and I'd like to talk to you about my home state, the state of Maryland. I went to the Maryland government website looking for information, found little or nothing. However, I did find something on Wikipedia, and it covered the state of Maryland from 1776 to the present date. I figured that after World War II, the whole political landscape of the world has changed. So I consider that the modern era. I created a chart from the Wikipedia data covering the years from 1947 to 2023. This chart shows the Maryland state government from 1947 to 2023 at the end of the Hogan administration. As we see by this chart, we have the state of Maryland. Note that the governor and the legislature are elected every 4 years. The General Assembly is comprised of the Senate and the House of Delegates. Notice that we have blue for the Democrats and red for the Republicans. Notice also that these two columns, representing the number of Democrats and the number of Republicans, is blue, indicating that the Democrats are the majority party of the Senate. The same is true for the House of Representatives. Over here we have the governorship. Again, red for Republicans and blue for governors. Now for a little background called history. The state of Maryland has been controlled by the Democrats since 1900. And they've maintained control in both the Senate and the House of Delegates for 123 years. By gerrymandering, making sure that they have a majority of districts that are Democratic. Notice also that their governorship has only had 2 Republican governors prior to 1950. Those governors were only serving 4-year terms. They never were or never had a second term. So, that means between 1900 and 1950, 42 years, the Democrats have been in the governor's chair. Now, when you consider the other 3 main departments, or I should say offices, of the state of Maryland, that is the Attorney General, the Controller of the Treasury, and the Secretary of State. No Republican has ever been in that office since 1900. That means those 3 offices of the state of Maryland have been in the hands of the Democrats 123 continuous years without a break. So the only place where the Republicans have ever had any major office or control of the state has been in the governor's chair. Therefore, my dissertation is limited to 1947, or I should say 1950, to 2023, and I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of each of the governors in turn. We'll start with Theodore R. McKeldin, who was the governor of Maryland from 1951 through 1959. He's chiefly responsible for getting the I-95 Expressway, the Baltimore Beltway, and the Harbor Tunnel. He also may be partly responsible for starting or laying the groundwork for the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Notice he had a high Democratic majority in both the House and the Senate, right here. So many of his bills probably never saw the light of day as the Democrats vetoed them. Next, we have Millard Tawes. I don't know too much about his administration, as I went into the Navy for 4 years, and when I came out, he was still the governor. I then registered as a Republican because I believed in fiscal responsibility and keeping the government small. After Millard Tawes, we have Spiro T. Agnew, who was the first Republican that I voted for. He only served 2 years because he was tapped by Richard Nixon to be his vice president. And during that campaign for the presidency, Agnew coined a term, quote, pointed-headed intellectuals, end quote. which I'll have more to say when I talk about the federal government. Anyhow, with a Democratic General Assembly, they chose Martin Mandel to finish out Agnew's 2-year term. And then Mandel ran for an additional 2 years, or 4 years I should say, or 2 terms as governor of Maryland. After Mandel, we have Harry Hughes, who served 2 terms or 8 years. I don't remember much what Hughes did. I consider him more a rubber stamp for the General Assembly run by the Democrats more than an individual thinker. But that's the way it goes. Most of the Democrats, governors, were nothing more than a rubber stamp for the General Assembly. Now we come to Donald Schaefer. Donald Schaefer. I did not vote for him in his first term of office. However, I did vote for him for the second term and proud of it. Donald Schaefer originally cut his teeth in the Baltimore City Council, where he fought many a battle with his Democratic co-workers. And then he ran as mayor. And as mayor, he fought like hell for the Inner Harbor development. The Democrats in the city council, the Democrats in the state government, that is the General Assembly, fought against him, but he managed to somehow persevere, and he got the Inner Harbor developed. Now today they consider it a prize, and they all want to take credit for what Schaefer did. Well, it really only belongs to Donald Schaefer, because he fought tremendous odds to see that it got done. Now one time, what he did, for a publicity stunt, he dressed up in a full-length bathing suit that looks like some prisoner uniform, black and white stripes, and then jumped into the pool. Well, the nation laughed at him and called him the clown of Baltimore. Make no mistake, Donald Schaefer was not a clown. He was an astute politician who knew exactly what he was doing. Thank God for him. But I do believe he got a little notoriety. After he left the governorship, he became the controller of the treasury for the state of Maryland. One time he walked into, I believe it was a McDonald's restaurant, to get a hamburger, and he was met by someone behind the counter who couldn't speak a word of English. And Schaefer made the comment, if they can't speak any English or have the wherewithal to learn a little bit, then maybe they ought to get out of the country. And he caught hell from the media for that. But you know what? I think a lot of Americans, including me, privately agreed with him. After Schaefer came Paris Glendenning. He was nothing more than a rubber stamp for the Democratic General Assembly. However, in his last couple of years in office, a couple of things happened. One, he froze the electric utility rate as it was beginning to move to a free market system. And the second thing is when Ehrlich got elected governor, he turned around and left a financial mess behind him. A former governor, Schaefer, lambasted it for him, saying that he never knew a governor to do such a dirty trick. After Bob Ehrlich became governor, he managed to straighten out the financial mess that the former governor left behind. In addition, he noted that the freeze on electric utility rates would be coming to an end. So he wanted the General Assembly to make it easy for Marylanders by having a 2 or 3 step program for increasing the utility rates. Well, the Democratic General Assembly just had nothing to do with that. They wanted to be able to hang that noose right around Bob Ehrlich's neck and hang him out to dry. And that's precisely what they did. In addition to that, there was a bill that came before the Assembly to allow casino gambling in the state of Maryland. Well, the gentleman that came up against it was none other than Michael Bush, who passed away here in 2019. And it's not nice, I know, to speak ill of the dead, but I will. Bush came up with every conceivable excuse for delaying that bill. Why? He did not want a Republican governor's signature on it. And I honestly do believe that if Ehrlich had won re-election, he would have figured out how to keep that bill out of the General Assembly for 4 more years. But as it happened, O'Malley got elected. and after 60 days he was sworn in as governor. That bill went through the General Assembly with the speed of light and landed on O'Malley's desk for a signature. O'Malley and Bush were all smiles. Great speaker is what they said of him on his passing, not in my book. After O'Malley became governor, he got to sign the casino bill. In the next 4 years, he really didn't do much. But I did hear something about him playing games with the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Fund. However, I could find nothing about that. Anyhow, he was elected to a second term, and that's when he proved to be a real Democrat. He raised over 40 taxes. He raised the sales tax from 5 to 6 cents, added 5 to 10 cents to the gasoline tax, doubled the fees on alcohol and tobacco, doubled the fees on the toll roads and bridges. He changed the Chesapeake Restoration Fund from $30 to $60 per landowner, raised the entertainment taxes, and a whole bunch of other taxes. And then he created a few new ones, and one of them caught the attention of the nation. That's right, it was the rain tax, the tax that was going to be levied on each homeowner and business for the amount of rain that fell on their property. Also amongst that tax, there was a so-called suggestion of a road tax, taxing each person who drives on Maryland highways a certain amount of money per mile or whatever. And then the rumor on that one was they were also considering a tax on the size of your engine and the amount of air it used when it ran. I will give the Democrats credit for 3 things. They are great at figuring out new taxes, they are great at raising taxes, and they are great at spending on money on things that don't amount to a hill of beans. The present governor is Larry Hogan, who ran against the so-called rain tax and the increases in other taxes of the previous administration. The Democrats, realizing they made a mistake, agreed to the repeal and also agreed to reduce some of the other taxes. The remainder of Hogan's first term dealt mostly with state finances, reducing the cost and expenses to run the government and saving the taxpayers a few dollars. When Hogan ran for a second term, the Democrats accused him of not putting in enough money in that so-called educational trust fund. But when you look at that state government, you find that the Democrats had a 2/3 plus majority in both the House and the Senate. Any bill that Hogan submitted, they could easily rewrite, hand it back to him, and if he vetoed it, they could have easily overridden his veto. Did they do that? No, they did not. So that argument about the money going in the trust fund really holds no water. Hogan proposed legislation to take the casino money and put it into an educational lock box. That proposal became an amendment on the ballot. I recall back in 1972, the General Assembly of Maryland came up with a ballot initiative to create a lottery commission to create a lottery for the state. However, a lot of religious organizations and groups were against it, as they said it would foster gambling in the state. Well, the Democrats had an answer for that. They would create an educational lockbox in which up to 25% of lottery proceeds would go in there for educational purposes only. Now, the bill passed. Therefore, the Lottery Commission was created, and the first drawings were held in May or June of '73. I went back looking for that piece of legislation, and I found it. And what I found was a little discouraging. It stated how much money was to go for the administrative costs, how much for paying out the winnings, and the remainder to go to the state. Nowhere in that legislation was it even mentioned an educational lockbox. The Democrats did not create it. When they went behind closed doors They effectively said, screw the voters, screw education, we're going to spend that money any way we feel like it. Well, the amendment on the past election passed. And now Hogan is proposing to put 100+ millions in the first year, 200+ in the second year, 300+ in the third year. So I went back on the internet looking, and I found it. Hogan proposed to put $125 million in his first year in that lockbox. But what is more amazing is I found the Democrats' proposal to put only $50 million. Democrats, $50 million. Republicans, $125 million. Who in the hell is in favor of education? I'd have to say the Democrats sure as hell are not. And then I got to thinking, what happens the next governor is a Democrat? I can bet you that the Democrats will put pennies in that lockbox instead of dollars. Hogan is in his first year of his second term. I don't know what the future will hold because no one can really predict it. Maryland has moved from a low cost to one of the highest cost states of living, mostly due to the taxation by the Democrats. It likes to boast that it is a free state, that is, one man, one vote. But I don't think so. It's more like one party, one vote, the Democratic Party, which in my opinion defeats the idea of one man to one vote. So this concludes my brief history and summary of the state of Maryland over the past 70 years. In my next blog, I hope to cover gerrymandering and a possible solution to get the politics out of it. After editing and reviewing the video, I realized I had a few mistakes. One was I did not show the URL for the Wikipedia data, which is right here. The second is I referred to this column as the House of Representatives. It is not. It is the House of Delegates. And the next one was I referred to blue as blue representing the governor. No, blue represents the Democratic Party. I want to thank you for listening to my blog, and I hope you will consider subscribing to my channel. Meanwhile, I hope you have a nice day, and until we meet again, thank you, good luck, and goodbye.